I thought I was living a fairy tale until one text shattered my world and exposed the man I loved. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted with your heart, please like this video or leave a comment so I know I'm not alone. Let's call me Sarah. I'm just a regular person, someone who believed in love, in promises, in forever. 2 years ago, I was 28, engaged to Ethan, the man I thought was my soulmate. He was the kind of guy who could light up a room with his smile, tall, with warm brown eyes and a laugh that made you feel safe. We met in the most ordinary way, at a little coffee shop near my apartment. I was juggling my latte and my phone, trying to answer an email, when I bumped into a table and spilled coffee everywhere. Ethan was sitting there, working on his laptop. He didn't laugh or make me feel stupid. He just handed me a stack of napkins and said, "Rough day, huh?" with this gentle grin. We got to talking, and before I knew it, we were exchanging numbers. That was the start of us. 3 years later, we were engaged. Ethan proposed at our favorite park, under a sky full of stars, with a picnic he'd planned himself. He got down on one knee, his hands shaking a little, and said, "Sarah, you make every day better. Will you marry me?" I was so happy I could barely speak. I said yes, and we spent the night dreaming about our future, a cozy house with a garden, maybe a dog, kids someday. We started planning a spring wedding, picking out venues, arguing over whether we'd have roses or lilies. Life felt like it was falling into place. I had a decent job as a graphic designer, a small but tight circle of friends. And Ethan, what more could I want? But looking back, I see the cracks I ignored. Love does that, it blinds you, makes you explain away things that don't sit right. About 6 months before everything fell apart, Ethan started changing. He was a marketing manager at a mid-sized tech company, and he'd always been busy. But now he was working late almost every night. He'd come home exhausted, his phone buzzing constantly. I'd ask, "How was your day?" and he'd shrug, say, "Same old," and bury himself in his phone. I thought it was stress. His company was pushing for a big product launch, and he was gunning for a promotion to senior manager. I wanted to be supportive, so I didn't push. But there was this nagging feeling, like a whisper in the back of my mind, telling me something was off. Then there were the little things. He'd get texts at odd hours and turn his phone away when I glanced over. Once, I saw him smile at a message, this soft, private smile I hadn't seen in months. When I asked who it was, he said, "Just a work thing," but his voice was too quick, too sharp. I started noticing how he'd take calls outside, pacing in our apartment's tiny balcony. His voice too low for me to hear. I'd tell myself I was being paranoid. Ethan loved me. He'd chosen me. But doubt is a slow poison, it creeps in, and once it's there, it's hard to shake. I remember one night, about a month before everything unraveled, when I tried to talk to him. We were on the couch, watching some random show, but he wasn't really watching. His phone kept lighting up, and he'd type quick replies, his fingers moving like he didn't want me to see. "Ethan," I said, keeping my voice light. "You're glued to that thing lately. Everything okay at work?" He looked up, and for a split second, I saw something in his eyes, guilt, maybe. But then he smiled, that charming smile that always melted me, and said, "Yeah, babe, just a lot of pressure. You know how it is." He leaned over, kissed my forehead, and changed the subject. I wanted to believe him so badly that I let it go. But that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying that look in his eyes, the way his smile didn't quite reach them. The real turning point came on a Tuesday night. Ethan said he had a late meeting, so I was home alone, scrolling through wedding dress ideas. His phone was on the kitchen counter. He'd forgotten it when he went to shower before leaving for work that morning. It buzzed, and a notification popped up. Just a name, Claire. No message preview. Just her name. But it hit me like a punch. Claire was his coworker, someone he'd mentioned a few times. "She's on my team," he'd said once. Casual, like she was just another colleague. But something about that notification felt wrong, like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. I stared at the phone, my heart racing. I didn't touch it. I wasn't that person. Not yet. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Claire was more than just a coworker. Over the next few weeks, her name kept coming up. I'd see it in Ethan's Instagram stories, group photos from work happy hours. Claire always there, standing a little too close to him. I'd catch him texting her during dinner, his thumbs flying across the screen. When I asked about her, he'd get defensive. "She's just a friend." "Sarah, why are you so paranoid?" That word paranoid stung. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if I was the problem. But the signs kept piling up, and my gut wouldn't let me ignore them. I confided in my best friend, Mia, who'd known me since college. We'd meet for coffee, and I'd spill everything: Ethan's late nights, his secrecy, the way he'd snap at me when I asked questions. Mia listened, her brow furrowed. "Sarah, you're not crazy," she said one day, stirring her latte. "If he's acting shady, there's a reason. Trust your instincts." Mia was the practical one, the friend who'd call you out but also hold your hand through the mess. She worked in HR at Ethan's company, which made me nervous about sharing too much. But she promised to keep it between us. "Just keep your eyes open," she said. "You deserve the truth." The truth came crashing down a month later. Ethan had another late meeting, and I decided to surprise him at his office. I'd done it before, brought him coffee or dinner when he was working late, and he always seemed touched. This time, I grabbed takeout from his favorite Thai place, my hands shaky as I drove. Part of me wanted to prove I was wrong, that he was just stressed, that I was overthinking. But another part of me knew I wasn't. The office building was quiet, most of the lights off. I walked through the lobby, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. The conference room at the end of the hall had a light on, and I could hear voices. My heart pounded as I got closer. I pushed the door open, expecting to see Ethan with his team, papers spread out, laptops glowing. Instead, I saw him, with her, Claire. They were alone, standing close, his hand on her waist, her head tilted toward him, laughing softly. It wasn't a work laugh, it was intimate, the kind of laugh you share with someone you're comfortable with, someone you're more than friends with. They didn't notice me at first, but then Ethan looked up. His face went pale, like he'd seen a ghost. "Sarah," he stammered, stepping back. Claire didn't move. She just looked at me, a faint smirk on her lips, like she was daring me to say something. I don't know how I stayed calm. My chest felt like it was caving in, but my voice came out steady. "Enjoy your meeting," I said, and I dropped the takeout bag on the floor. The containers spilled, curry leaking onto the carpet. I turned and walked out, my legs moving on autopilot. I heard Ethan call my name, but I didn't stop. I got in my car, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I don't know how I made it home without crashing. When I got to our apartment, I sat on the couch, staring at the engagement ring on my finger, It felt heavy, like it was burning my skin. The life I'd imagined our wedding. Our future felt like a cruel joke. Ethan came home an hour later, his face flushed, his voice full of excuses. "Sarah, it's not what you think. Claire's just a friend. We were just talking, catching up after work. You're blowing this out of proportion." But I saw the way he looked at her, the way his hand lingered on her. I saw the truth in Claire's smirk. "Ethan," I said, my voice shaking, "don't lie to me. Not now." He kept talking, piling on more excuses. But I wasn't listening. I felt like I was underwater. His words muffled. My heart breaking. If you've ever had someone you love look you in the eye and lie, you know that pain. It's not just the betrayal. It's the way it makes you question everything. Every memory, every promise, every moment you thought was real. I wanted to scream, to throw his ring at him, to make him feel even a fraction of the hurt I was feeling. But I didn't. I just sat there, numb, as he begged me to believe him. I didn't. Not anymore. The next day, I packed a bag and left. I couldn't stay in that apartment, surrounded by our photos, our plans. I called Mia, and she didn't hesitate. "Come stay with me," she said. "You don't have to go through this alone." I moved into her spare room, a tiny space with a lumpy mattress and a window that overlooked a parking lot. It wasn't much, but it was a lifeline. Mia was my rock, listening as I cried, raged, and tried to make sense of it all. Ethan kept calling, texting, leaving voicemails. "Sarah, let's talk. I love you. This is a misunderstanding." I didn't respond. Every message felt like another cut, reopening the wound. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. A few weeks later, Mia came home from work, her face grim. She sat me down and said, "I heard something at the office. You're not gonna like it." She'd overheard a conversation in the break room. Claire wasn't just a fling. She and Ethan had been seeing each other for months, sneaking around behind my back. They'd even talked about moving in together after our wedding was called off. Claire knew about me the whole time. She'd bragged to coworkers about winning Ethan, calling me the clueless fiancé behind my back. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. They'd made a fool of me, and they didn't care. That's when the hurt turned to anger. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was furious. Furious at Ethan for lying, at Claire for her smugness, at myself for not seeing it sooner. I lay awake at night, my mind racing with questions. How long had they been laughing at me? How many times had Ethan looked me in the eye and lied I wanted to confront them, to scream, to make them feel the weight of what they'd done? But I knew that wouldn't be enough. Yelling wouldn't undo the pain. I needed something bigger, something that would hit them where it hurt. I needed revenge. I started planning, but not in a reckless way. I wanted it to be smart, calculated, something they'd never see coming. Ethan and Claire were both obsessed with their careers. Ethan was up for a senior manager position, a role he'd been chasing for years. Claire was angling for a lead role on a new project, one that could make her a star at the company. Their reputations were everything to them, so I decided to use that against them. I still had access to Ethan's work email. We'd shared passwords for things like Netflix and Spotify, and he'd never bothered to change his work login. It was a stupid mistake on his part, one I wasn't above exploiting. I didn't want to do anything illegal, no hacking, no stealing. I just logged in one night, my heart pounding, and scrolled through his inbox. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Emails between him and Claire, sent during work hours, full of flirty banter and unprofessional comments. Some even mentioned skipping meetings to meet up at a nearby hotel. There were also emails where Ethan trashed his coworkers, including a guy named Mark, who he called dead weight behind his back. It was a goldmine of bad decisions. I didn't leak the emails. That would have been too obvious. And I didn't want to get caught. Instead, I forwarded a few key ones to Mia, who anonymously passed them to the company's ethics board through an internal complaint system. I also reached out to Mark, the coworker Ethan had bad-mouthed, through a fake email account. I didn't say much, just enough to let him know what Ethan really thought of him. Mark was furious, and word spread fast. The office started buzzing with rumors, and Ethan's perfect image started to crack. The fallout was beautiful in its simplicity. Ethan didn't get the promotion. His boss hauled him into a meeting, citing concerns about professionalism, and he was passed over for someone else. He came home fuming, according to a mutual friend, blaming everyone but himself. Claire's project lead role vanished too. The ethics board flagged her for inappropriate conduct, and she was reassigned to a low-profile desk job, the kind of role she'd always looked down on. They didn't lose their jobs, but their careers took a hit, and their egos took a bigger one. The best part. They had no idea I was behind it. I played the heartbroken ex, crying to mutual friends, keeping my hands clean. But I wasn't done. I wanted them to feel the weight of their betrayal, to face it in a way they couldn't ignore. A few months after our breakup, I heard they were engaged. Engaged. After everything, they had the audacity to throw a big engagement party, inviting half the office and our mutual friends. It was like they were rubbing it in my face, parading their happiness while I was still picking up the pieces. I wasn't invited, of course, but I saw the invite on a friend's phone, a fancy venue, a gushing caption about their love story. It made me sick, but it also gave me an idea. I had a friend, Lisa, who was invited to the party. She'd been on my side through the breakup, quietly furious at Ethan for what he'd done. I told her my plan, and she didn't hesitate. "Let's do it," she said, her eyes gleaming. I spent days putting together a slideshow. It wasn't malicious, not exactly just a collection of photos from my years with Ethan. Our first trip to the beach, where we'd built a lopsided sandcastle and laughed until we couldn't breathe. The night he proposed, my face glowing with joy. Photos of us planning our wedding, picking out flowers, dreaming of a future that would never happen. At the end, I added one slide. "Congratulations, Claire. You won the man who betrayed me. Good luck." Lisa loaded the slideshow onto a USB drive and brought it to the party. She told the DJ it was a surprise tribute for the couple. When it played, the room went silent. The photos flashed across the screen, each one a reminder of the life Ethan had thrown away. Our friends, his coworkers. Everyone watched as the story unfolded, the happy couple, the engagement, the love that was supposed to be forever. And then that final slide. Lisa said Ethan's face turned red, his jaw clenched. Claire tried to laugh it off, but her voice cracked. Guests started whispering, asking questions. Some looked uncomfortable, others amused. The party didn't recover. Ethan and Claire spent the night trying to explain, but the damage was done. Their perfect moment was ruined, tainted by the truth they'd tried to bury. I wasn't there to see it, but Lisa called me afterward, laughing so hard she could barely speak. "Sarah, it was chaos. She said. They were mortified. Everyone was talking about you. For the first time in months, I felt a weight lift. It wasn't just about humiliating them, it was about taking back my story. They'd built their happiness on my pain, and I made sure they couldn't ignore it. After that, I let go. Revenge wasn't about destroying them, it was about reclaiming myself. I moved out of Mia's place and got my own apartment, a tiny studio with big windows and a view of the city. I threw myself into my work, taking on freelance design projects that pushed me to grow. I started painting again, something I'd stopped doing when I was with Ethan. My canvases were messy, full of bold colors and raw emotion, but they were mine. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and started to feel like myself again, not the broken fiancé, but Sarah, the woman who'd survived. I saw my family through it all, too. My mom and dad were devastated when I told them about Ethan. They'd loved him, welcomed him into our family, and the betrayal hit them hard. My mom would call, her voice soft, asking, "Are you sure you're okay?" Honey, I wasn't. Not always. But I was getting there. My younger brother, Jake, was less gentle. If I ever see that guy again, he'd say, his fists clenched, "He's gonna regret it." I'd laugh, tell him to let it go, but his protectiveness meant the world. They reminded me I wasn't alone, even when I felt like it. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that Ethan and Claire were still together. But things weren't as rosy as they'd hoped. The office gossip hadn't died down, and their relationship was strained. I didn't care. Not really. Their story wasn't mine anymore. I was writing a new one, and it was better than anything I'd imagined with Ethan. I started a blog, sharing my designs and bits of my story, not the revenge part, but the journey of rebuilding. It resonated with people. And soon I was getting messages from strangers who'd been through similar betrayals. "You gave me hope." One woman wrote, "I thought I'd never move on, but seeing you thrive makes me believe I can." Those messages kept me going on the hard days. Sometimes, I still think about Ethan, not with longing, but with a quiet sadness for what could have been. I wonder if he ever realized what he lost, or if Claire ever felt a flicker of guilt. But those thoughts don't consume me anymore. I've learned that betrayal doesn't define you. It's what you do after that matters. I chose to fight, not with fists or screams, but with quiet, deliberate steps to take back my power. And I did. My life isn't perfect, but it's mine. And it's full of possibility. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you confront the betrayal head-on, or find a way to make them pay? Leave a comment below and let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. Maybe you've got a story of your own. I'd love to hear it. Until next time, keep writing your own legend.